All right, so I've talked a good deal about how Electra or Double Demons, the VR dating sim game that I'm working on, has room for creative expression for players and skill based dialogue choice, which I've been claiming is setting it apart from pretty much all other games, especially in the dating sim genre. So let me explain what I really mean by that and how I have come to justify that claim. Basically, player expression is you have a lot of different ways you can approach a goal. You know, if you're in a first person shooter, you can select different guns. You can try to charge straight on. You can try to find a sniper position. You can camp out by a doorway and hope that somebody comes by. There's a lot of ways that you can apply a relatively small set of tools. You can get into vehicles, stuff like that. Same thing with like something like League of Legends. You can, focus on creeping. You can focus on hero killing. You can focus on killing turrets or other objectives like Baron or Dragon. You can focus on supporting one of your teammates to get fed. You can prioritize early or late game items. There's so many different strategic ways to, a lot of these things are valuable, and it's up to the player, and partially for their own strategic goals, but also for their own preferences and expression to choose, what they're going to kind of prioritize or go for. So I've applied a similar train of thought here. In the dating simulation world, that comes to, okay, are you trying to get with this girl or not at a baseline, which a lot of games in the dating simulation genre are not doing. It's really one dimensional, and it's hard enough as it is. So I'm not hating on them. I'm just trying to make a comparison. But normally it would be something like you're choosing one of the set of the girls or all of them, and you're progressing linearly towards them liking you, or usually just missing the opportunity to build that stat high enough to have them go out with you, or whatever the reward is at the end of that progression. So for my game, I decided it was really important that the girl be able to accept you, but also reject you in a way that the game can sustain over time. Now that's really complicated because, especially in a dialogue, based game, it's really punishing to be rejected. And unlike, pursuing strategies like, focusing towers, there's the mantra of champions come back and towers don't, or something like that. So you can, everyone can get wiped, but you could still have, made some sort of a progress. Whereas typically, if you are pursuing a girl in the context of the game in a dating simulation, and you get to like a tipping point where you have to ask her out or something, or go for a kiss, if she says no, that's like kind of more of a game over situation. There's no recovery. So usually that would result in a game over, a restart, or it would just be that girl is off limits from now on. You can pursue other girls, or you can load a save. So I thought a lot about what would be the value to the player of pursuing a strategy that would result in them getting rejected, either intentionally or more likely unintentionally. And how could I sustain that, and why is that valuable? Well, in order for it to be skill based, you need to have more of those consequences carried throughout the game. So one thing you could, possibly gain from that is if you're building different reputations that are more global. So maybe getting rejected by one girl could garner sympathy from another, or it could deepen your, non-romantic friendship with that person, because, in a sense, you've dealt with your feelings of attraction for her. She's not interested, and you're able to move on. Or even more complex, which is something that has been interesting to me as well, is I think it would be a really exciting strategy if you were, or just a thing that could happen in the game. It could also be strategic, but if you go for, asking out a girl and in the game, and she says no, so you've been rejected, And then you begin a very long-winded arc to, in many senses, redeem yourself. And, maybe that goes as far as to break the difficulty and the just the emotional hurdles of that having, been in your past between, two people. You would date somebody else, or maybe a significant time has passed, or, maybe she would date somebody else and they would break up. Things like that, could be a somewhat realistic transition point or a progression of a much more complicated character arc. So I'm really interested in that sort of thing. So these are all things that are actually possible with the way that the system, the math works for the Electra double demons. You can track all these properties separately. So when you keep the friendship and bond separate from the, attraction, respect variable, it gives the player a very, non-black and white choice about what they're going to prioritize. So if you're choosing dialogue options that raise your friendship, so maybe you're just being relatively friendly and, and funny or something like that, that might be something that her personality appreciates in a friendship building way, but doesn't appreciate as much, or could even be a negative in some of the variables for attraction. So you could prioritize that, and maybe a bigger, a greater friendship will allow you access to, inviting her to a study group or, a group event, and she would be more interested in doing that. Whereas if you focused on attraction early, maybe it would be more of an adversarial kind of relationship progression where she doesn't like you that much in a friendship way. So you're more so in a trope way, like at each other's throats, teasing each other with a bit of an edge. And it might be more difficult to invite her out on something, more innocent, because she doesn't really like you that much, even if she has developed some attraction for you. Of course, in that, I don't even just want it to be a trade-off of that. I think that to make it truly skill-based, it should be possible, let the properties of all the dialogue choices be consistent, because that's what strategy is. It's giving players reliable tools and a system with rules to interact with. So it could also be possible that the player is choosing options either intentionally or just because the dialogue options appeal to them, they're expressing their own personality. They could be choosing options that bring the friendship variable down and the attraction variable down. So in that case, the AI character would be not very friendship minded, not liking them very much, and then also kind of repulsed, not attracted to them either. Which is, of course, a real thing that happens. Not every negative interaction on the surface level is connected to some sort of attractive element below the surface. That's certainly not the case. So we've got all that going on. So when you allow for that system to go forward, and you allow for the possibility of AIs to accept and reject. And I think that should also work for players. If you maybe build up a lot of attraction, all these meters are the AI facing the player. You can't really know what the player's intentions are. And I'm not necessarily interested in trying to tell them what they're doing. They could be saying what they're saying for any combination of reasons. So I think it's also really important that if you build a lot of attraction, so if a girl becomes really into the player because of, different interactions or any combinations of the systems going on, they should be able to, make a play for the player and try to, get them alone and go for a kiss, or ask them out, or, try to change some sort of a group event into a more of a one-on-one. Stuff like that should be able to happen, and the player should be able to accept or reject them also. These, seem like complications to a lot of people because you're focused on a more of a win-lose state that sets you to a game over. But without that, you're not really able to engage the content on both sides. You're not able to explore what does a conversation look like when you're getting rejected, is the girl trying to encourage you and break it down, or is she telling you that you need to back off? You've been making her uncomfortable. Is she confused because of the mismatch in, how she feels about you in a friendship way, or how she feels about you in an attraction way? All these sorts of things can be explored when the extremes are also possible. Or at least it makes that much easier to explore. If she can never reject you without it ending in a game over state, then you're, severely cutting off all of that relationship, experience that, is inspired by real life, is true to real life. And that's the beauty of the system, is it allows you to track those variables and have that expression in there. So there's so many things that come out of that too. So when you start to have a conversation where, based on your previous relationship, you choosing the same options could go different ways. So if you've built up the friendship, asking her out, maybe she'll be nice to you about it, try to let you down softly, but she'll ultimately reject you if she's not attracted to you enough, and if you're not executing the, asking her out in a way that, makes her comfortable, or, gets to the part of her that, is pining for the player. So not only do you have all of that, but you can, within the system, when you have, AI says option A, AI says option B, and it's all grouped together in the way that I have, that also means you can track how close the AI was to deciding one thing over another. So if they're on the same, if they're on the same like timeline, you've got a 0 to 10 rating, your her attraction to you is like a 5 out of 10, let's say. It starts at a 0, so it's all the way to a 5 out of 10. So you've built significant attraction, but she's not head over heels for you. And then you ask her out directly. It takes into account her attraction in there. So it starts at a 5, and then based on, the expression of what you're saying in the moment, with the system that carries throughout the entire game, of you're saying things that are different components of emotions, different damage types, just like Pokemon, you've got fire damage, but in this case it would be mean or friendly or clean or crude or serious or funny, unique, simple, complex. You've got all these components. So it starts out at a 5 out of 10, and then maybe you say something in a way that she's attracted to. Maybe it's funny and confident, would be a standard trope, but not all personality types. Then it becomes a 7 out of 10. And then she's choosing from the written responses with on that time scale. So maybe her response that's accepting you asking her out at this stage is, put in at a 9. So she's like very enthusiastically like, I was hoping you would ask, or yeah, absolutely. And maybe the rejection on the same time scale is something closer to like a 4 or a 3. So what that means is, okay, so you got a 7 out of 10. That's much closer to 9 than to 4, but you can actually take that difference. You can say, okay, the difference between 7 and 9, 2 points out of 10, and store that in another variable. And that variable would be, maybe some sort of frustration or, misgiving. So she's reacting to you in a way that's more positive than she actually feels, which is again, inspired by real life. It's a real thing that happens, where in many situations we don't have the finesse, or maybe just the option, to say things in the exact level of, feeling that we have for them. Just like, with someone asking you out, you pretty much can only say yes or no. And there's kind of an extreme snapping of that, where it's pretty tough to answer that question in like, a 5 out of 10, a completely neutral way. So what that means is you can store that difference. So over time you could be accumulating, if she's getting a calculation, the true, think of her true inner feelings as represented by this math, the relationship plus her reaction to what you just said. think of that as those are her feelings that she's feeling in the moment. If her feelings are saying, 7 out of 10, but she's choosing to say the 9 out of 10 option, and that's how it works, is it's going to snap to the closest, which also enables writers to write as many or as few options as they want. It's a great optimization on the kind of content load that you get with this sort of a system. So if it snaps from a 7, which is what her true feelings are, to a 9, then she's got 2 points of, I am maybe less enthusiastic about, saying yes here than I am, presenting, that I'm expressing, which isn't a big deal by itself, but it could accumulate. And if it accumulates enough where she's treating you better or not, then that's going to come out in some way. She's going to, maybe have some complaints, or maybe it would come out in a way where she's like, actually, I don't want to be in this relationship. Maybe the date turns into a girlfriend-boyfriend situation, and but the frustration is too high where she isn't feeling as strongly as she has been expressing, at least out loud, on the surface level. And the opposite can happen too. So maybe, again, you get that, maybe instead of a 7, you get a 5 or a 6 is her true emotion feeling. So she's feeling very mixed on this, you asking her out, you trying to make her, go on a date with you or be your girlfriend. So if she's snapping down on this, 0 to 10 scale, that can be stored as a variable to say, oh, she feels guilty. She feels a need to apologize, or, she really does like you, but is feeling apprehensive or unsure for some reason. And that could result, again, if it accumulates over time, if she really does have strong feelings for you, but based on complexities of the situation, she's been, spurring your advances, then that could trigger, if those points add up to like 50 or 100, then maybe she calls you on the phone while you're at home and asks to get together to talk, or, and this would be in a positive way, or for a cup of coffee or something like that on the weekend. So you have all sorts of fascinating, really true to real life things that can happen, but these interactions happen at a very consistent degree. So any single thing you say, the expression of it has a very tiny impact on the relationship. It's very similar to Pokemon, except that at the end of every conversation, nothing's been defeated. Your relationship, maybe your friendship starts at a 5 out of 10. So everything she's reacting to you starts out pretty neutral when it's considered on the friendship spectrum. So, if you're just saying hi, she starts at a 5 out of 10 as far as how she wants to react. And then she intakes, okay, are you saying things in a way that I like? Oh, okay. You're being, timid and friendly, so this is very positive for me. Maybe she's, wary of overconfidence. So that's very positive for her. So, her, emotional reaction in the moment is a 7, and her friendship with you overall goes up like 0.1. So like, a very tiny amount, but over time across many conversations, the relationship begins to take form and settle into these more extreme, or, maybe it's kind of stays balanced. You say as much things that she likes as she dislikes, and the relationship, stays maybe very stable with just increased familiarity. So I'm just really excited about what players can do with these tools. You can, aim for one stat over another, or, and I think this is something that resonates with me very strongly, is the player can just choose expression options that they feel resonate with them. And then naturally, based on the different AI's personalities, some of the AI characters will really like them, or, have a mixed feelings across different, attraction or friendship variables. And other AI characters will feel the opposite. So you can choose what resonates most strongly with you as far as a dialogue option. You can notice all the effects happening, which is kind of representative of you just being sensitive to others. I mean, we have to decide what to do with that. Will you change your behavior a little bit or a lot? Will you just, say, well, I want to be what I want to say most, and I'll just deal with whatever the results of that are. But now, at least, even if that was the case in any game, you can see what that means. And a really cool thing happens where, maybe a lot of AI characters don't like the way that you're being, but maybe one does, and you can see that uniqueness. You can see how, like, oh, that other person I was talking to wouldn't have appreciated this at all. But she really likes, my sense of humor. And the way the dialogue options are nested, you've got, the meaning of what you're saying, asking a girl out versus, not asking her out, just saying, oh, see you tomorrow. And then you've got the expression within that. So asking her out in a confident way and directly, or more timid, like, oh, you're probably busy, saying see you later in a more mean way, like, oh, finally, I get a break from you, or in a more friendly way, like, oh, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Stuff like that. You can see how that translates, through the AI character's personality. They're looking at these damage types, just like in a turn-based, Pokemon. Use that comparison a lot, but similar to that sort of a system where you've got consistent properties that have different effects based on the person you're talking to. So I'm really excited to see players interact with that, and I think it really unlocks the door for a depth of character interaction development, and just talking about deep topics that would be so mechanically disconnected from the typical game mechanics, of increasing your skill and perception, anticipation of what's going to happen, and really the mega mind of seeing all these variables at once and deciding what's the most important thing. Do I need to build the friendship here? Do I need to build the attraction here? Is this a conversation where disagreeing will lead me down a further and further negative route? So even if I believe one thing, I'll avoid the topic, or I'll go down the topic because it's important and I don't want to shy away from who I am, and maybe that will result in conflict that could be positive because the properties are not arbitrarily attached to the conversations. One conversation isn't good and other conversations are bad. They're all just opportunities to express what you're saying in different, damage type ways. So yeah, that is what makes Double Demons and the Electra dialogue system different than other dialogue systems. It opens the door very wide for, kind of all possible core routes of relationship development. Friendship up, or, high friendship, high attraction, low friendship, low attraction, low friendship, and something more neutral, mixed. There's plenty of people, for the typical player of the game, that you're not interested in dating, but you just are casually hanging out with or talking to about different things. So you can kind of see how, different sets of variables interact with people that you aren't actively pursuing too, which is unusual for dating sim based games. Usually you really care about maxing out the stats of the girls that you're going after, and that's a more singular focus than what the benefits or just the interest of the conversation content itself. So thanks for watching, and I'm interested to talk about this one a lot more. There's a lot to say on the dialogue system, and well, it's just hard to stay focused on the topic for too long, but I'll check in again soon. Thank you.